here. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. I, of course, am your host, Tyler Lopes. If you have not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. Also, hit that bell icon so you never miss any one of my videos. Also, please like and share so you can help the podcast grow. And please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Lopes Goes Last on Twitter and at Lopes Goes Last podcast on Facebook. And the links to those will be down in the description below. As always, I have to admit, guys, I was a little bit caught off guard this week as to just how little content there was going to be for me to talk about this week. Not really a whole lot going on MLB-wise, not really a whole lot going on NBA-wise because they're in Summer League and NFL is just in training camp. So not really a whole lot to talk about, but I'm going to do the best I can. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter of a podcast this week, though. So if you guys do like that, for the fact that it's a little shorter, let me know, and I promise I'll not be offended, I guess, if you guys want just shorter videos. But anyways, first thing I want to talk about this week is going to be just a development that I've seen happen over the last couple of days with Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants. Saquon Barkley and the Giants have not been able to come together or come to any sort of agreement on a contract extension for the Pro Bowl and just all-world running back. And it's kind of surprising. And the reason why it's surprising to me is because, quite frankly, and I don't even think this is an unpopular opinion here, maybe it is, but I think Saquon is far more valuable of a player to the Giants than Daniel Jones is, and Daniel Jones obviously got paid $40+ million a year earlier this offseason. So, yeah, it's really weird to me. The Giants, they made all these moves to try and get better. They extended Dexter Lawrence, obviously extended Daniel Jones. They traded for Darren Waller. They had a pretty solid draft this year, brought in some key free agents to kind of help out their team and their depth. And yet, I feel like the most important and impactful player on their team is just being hung out to dry, which confuses me. And listen, I understand. I don't think running backs are very valuable in today's NFL. I just don't. Now, do I want that to be true? No. I want that to be very false. But unfortunately, you can draft a running back in the 5th round, and they can be just as successful as if you draft a running back top 10. Now, that goes for a lot of other positions too, but it's especially true with running backs. It's not true for quarterbacks most of the time. I mean, Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick. But other than that, I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head that wasn't a 1st-round quarterback that's ended up becoming wildly successful in today's NFL. I mean, you think of the guys that are really, really good in today's NFL, right? Aaron Rodgers, 1st-round pick. Josh Allen, top 10 pick. Patrick Mahomes, top 10 pick. Deshaun Watson, 1st-round pick. Joe Burrow, number 1 pick in the draft. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick in the draft, right? Like, it's just all these guys that have been drafted super high that are really the most talented quarterbacks, and that's just how it is with quarterbacks, right? That doesn't mean that every 1st-round quarterback you pick is going to be a hit. I mean, that's just not true either. But to think that you're going to replace a guy or draft a guy in the 5th round and he's going to be your franchise guy, that's not really true, but that really could be what you think if you draft a guy in the 5th round as a running back. That is so that's kind of the point I'm trying to make there is running backs not very valuable. And Saquon's looking for top tier money, and while I think he deserves it, I think that his injury history is going to make the Giants and other teams very, very hesitant to give him that kind of money. But you know what? They gave it to Christian McCaffrey, and that guy was injured for about 3 straight years, basically, with a couple games in between. And then he ends up going to the San Francisco 49ers. He stays healthy, and he's immediately the best player on that team. I mean, it's ridiculous. At least the best player on the offense outside of maybe Debo, or George Kittle. George Kittle's pretty darn good. I don't want to forget about George Kittle, so maybe I'll take that back. But he was very important. That's the point. So, weird to me. I don't understand why the Giants don't just pay Saquon. Now, you know what? From the reports I heard, they did give him a contract extension offer that was about $13 million a year, and he turned it down because he's wanting top-tier money. And if that's the case, then okay, I can understand the hesitancy, because maybe you think that Saquon needs another fully healthy year under his belt before you're willing to give him that kind of money. If you're willing to give him that kind of money at all. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, if the Giants sign Daniel Jones for $40+ million a year and they don't re-sign Saquon, I'm gonna laugh so hard because look, again, I know running back's not that valuable, but for the Giants, let's be honest with each other here, guys. Obviously, you can't answer me here, but I'm gonna know what your answer is because it's a logical answer, which is no. Do any of you guys really think that Daniel Jones is good enough to lead a team to a Super Bowl? No, I don't think any of us do. I think that if you give Daniel Jones a bunch of incredible weapons, an incredible defense, an incredible offensive line, an incredible secondary, and really good special teams and coaching, it's possible you could win a Super Bowl. But if you don't give Daniel Jones all those things, there's no way he's going to carry you to a Super Bowl. Look, Joe Burrow, 2 years ago, took a revolving door of an offensive line and a mediocre defense to a Super Bowl. Anybody want to argue with that? The Bengals had a great wide receiver core and a really good running back and a really good quarterback. Their offensive line was awful, better last year, but still 2 years ago they were awful. And their defense was mediocre. Maybe like 16th or 17th best in the NFL. And Joe Burrow was so good that he drug that team to a Super Bowl. Daniel Jones does not have that in him. As far as I can tell, as far as I've seen so far, now he could prove me wrong, and he has gotten marginally better every year. He doesn't have that in him yet. He's not that good of a quarterback that if you don't give him weapons, if you don't give him an offensive line, if you don't give him a great defense, he's going to do something. Last year, he basically just kind of made the team go at the pace that they were going to go already, and he tried not to screw it up. That's essentially what Daniel Jones did last year. He just tried not to screw it up because he had a really good team around him. He had a pretty good offensive line that's young and up and coming and has some great players on there. He's got a defense that was getting better and better and was one of the top 10 defenses in the league last year. He's got an all-pro running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield and make anybody miss and break tackles like crazy if he stays healthy. To be fair, he did not have a lot of wide receiver or tight end weapons last year. To be fair to him. Maybe if he got some better weapons, he'd be a little better. And they got Darren Waller this year, so, we'll see. But right now, I don't think any of us can confidently say that Daniel Jones can lead you to a Super Bowl. And so, the Giants paid him $40 million a year, basically betting that he's going to be able to carry this franchise. And I would be so surprised that if they let Saquon Barkley go and didn't replace him with some equal or very close to talent-wise, running back, I would be floored if Daniel Jones had any kind of high volume of success. Not to say that they couldn't be okay, but I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl. And that's your goal every year. Every team, your goal is to either win a Super Bowl or to rebuild completely and then 5 years from now win a Super Bowl. Whatever the case is, right? So I don't know what to think about what's going on there. There's been really conflicting reports. I've seen that Saquon's not asking for top money. I'm pretty sure he even said, I'm not asking to set the market for running backs. I'm asking to just pay what I feel is fair. But also, if he turned down slightly less than top of the market value because he wants top of the market value, then, you can't have both those things. Now, I guess, technically, if he said, I'm not looking to set the market, but he wants to have the exact same amount as the highest paid running back, which I think is Christian McCaffrey, then I guess that technically qualifies as not setting the market. But at the same time, when you say, I'm not looking to set the market, that should also mean you're not looking to make the exact same amount of money as the very top guy, too. I feel like you're saying you'll take slightly less than the top guy. which I would think would be fair for Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's the best running back in football. I think he's a top 3 or top 5 running back in football. So that means he should be paid like a top 3 or top 5 running back. That's how I feel. And I think the Giants need to be the one that pays him because I think that he's more valuable on that team than he is any other team in the NFL right now. I think if you stuck Saquon Barkley on the Eagles, he wouldn't be as good. I think if you stuck Saquon Barkley on the Patriots, I would love that, but he wouldn't be as good. I think if you stuck Saquon Barkley on the Dolphins or on the Jets or on the Chiefs or on the Steelers, although the Steelers wouldn't need him, but the point is, I just don't think he'd be as good or as effective as he is in that system for the Giants. So, what do you guys think? I quite frankly think that they should re-sign him, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section, and I would be so happy to interact with you guys. So, please let me know what you guys think, and we will go from there. Moving on to NBA Summer League. The Summer League's been going on for about a week now, and maybe a little more. And I watched a few of the Celtics games. I didn't get to watch the Lakers-Celtics game last night, which is the one game that they won. I did get to see the other two that they have played. And I wanted to just give my take on the team, on how they've been doing, what I've seen, what I'd like to see moving forward. I don't think they have any other games because they're 1-2, so they're not moving on. I think only the top 4 teams move on in Summer League playoffs. So I'm not sure if they're going to play anymore after last night. So Summer League might be over for the Celtics anyway. But I did want to, again, talk about a little bit of the things that I've seen and some things that I would have liked to see, or if there are more games that I'm not aware of that I would like to see down the road in the Summer League. I would have really liked to see Yam Madar or Johan Begarin, 2 guys that were drafted a couple years ago that are drafting stash players in the Summer League. I would have really liked to see one or both of those guys in the Summer League this year. I'm a big fan of Yam Madar. I think that he could be a really good bench point guard for the Celtics. Like he's a guy that's not going to turn the ball over a whole lot. He's a guy that is a much better playmaker than he is a shooter or scorer. Now, obviously, we want shooters and scorers too, and guys that can do that, but I think the Celtics, what they need off the bench is a guy that's just going to run the offense. A guy that's reliable, it's not going to turn the ball over, that's going to play some defense, that's going to, I keep saying it, but not turn the ball over and just be a pure playmaking point guard, and that's what Yam Madar is. So I would have liked to see him. And Johan Begarin, or Begarin, I don't know how it's pronounced, to be honest with you. I've heard it all different ways. So one of you guys know, let me know in the comment section. I'd be happy to hear it. So he's not a point guard necessarily, but I think that he's a guy that could be an athletic wing/guard combo guy off the bench that could play some solid defense and just give some athleticism in transition. He would be a guy that wouldn't really play a whole lot, but I think this offseason, the Celtics really kind of wanted to get front court depth and really have that, talk about that big-headed, 3-headed monster at the front court with Al Horford, Rob Williams, and Kristaps Porzingis. I think that was a huge goal for them, was to kind of spread out the front court depth instead of having a billion guards and Peyton Pritchard, who is a perfectly good player that can really light it up on offense and drop 20 like that, sitting on your bench and having DNPs for 3/4 of the season. I mean, that's, whereas, your front court depth, you're basically playing just Al and Rob for the entirety of the playoffs, with Grant Williams coming in sparingly and playing a little bit. You had Mike Muscala that never played in the playoffs. Blake Griffin never played, other than maybe some crunch time. Last 2 minutes of a blowout or something like that. Luke Cornett. You had all these guys in your front court that just sat there and didn't do anything all season, and or not all season, but all playoffs. Excuse me. So I think that was a big goal. So in turn, I think the guards and the forwards are a little bit less deep than what you otherwise would have, especially considering you traded Danilo Gallinari, so he's not going to be a part of your team. And you traded away Grant Williams in a sign-and-trade to Dallas. So He's a forward slash big. But I think that, Jordan Walsh will play a huge role, and I'll talk about him in a minute this year. But I think Begarin could have been a guy that, maybe filled out that roster, maybe got one of those last guard slash forward spots that's really at the end of the bench, 14th or 15th guy at the end of the bench. And you know what? He may very well be. He may have just not played in Summer League. I don't know how it's going to go this year, but that would have been something that I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see at least one of those guys play in Summer League. But unfortunately, neither of them did. They had commitments to their teams overseas, one for France and one for, I think, Israel. I can't remember where Yamadar is, but either way, some things that I did see for the team that did go out there. Jay Scrubb is an interesting player. I think that he's really, really inconsistent, and I think that's probably why he's not a consistent NBA player. I think that that's why he's probably been in the G League for so long, because he is just so inconsistent. I mean, there's times where he's an absolute microwave, and he can get you 10 points in a matter of 2 or 3 or 4 possessions in a row, and then just kind of throw up bad shots and miss wildly, turn the ball over. But he is an interesting player, and I would not mind seeing him be kind of what I thought Johan Begarin might be. Just a guard slash forward right at the end of the bench, that can come off the bench and be a spark plug for you and get you some instant offense a little bit, even if you sacrifice a little bit at the defensive end for that. So I like him a lot. J.D. Davison, excuse me. I don't know why I keep saying Davidson when I say his name, but he was a second-round pick last year. I like him a lot. I think that he is. I think he's a guy that if he can learn to handle NBA pressure, and I don't mean pressure in like the metaphorical sense. I mean like pressure as in physical defensive pressure from double teams and from guys that are going to be guarding him that are going to be bigger than him, and not turn the ball over, because I saw a lot in the first 2 games where teams would double towards the beginning of games, especially during that Miami Heat game. There was a lot of double teams on him at the beginning, and he would turn the ball over a lot. If he can learn to handle that kind of defensive pressure, I think he could be a guy that comes off the bench and runs an offense, and is not a guy that's going to get you a whole lot of points. But I think at least 2 out of the 3 games, he had a double-double. So he had over 10 assists in these NBA Summer League games, which, again, Summer League is much different than actual NBA basketball. But still, the point is that he shows these skills where he can be a playmaker. And so I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe get a little bit of an expanded run and kind of take that Peyton Pritchard spot this year where, Pritchard last year was at the very end of the bench and never played. And J.D. Davison was a guy that played a little bit last year too in very, very crunch time situations where it was like a minute left and they were down by 12 or up by 20 or whatever. But I think J.D. Davison could be a guy that gives you 8 solid minutes, 10 solid minutes off the bench, and not turn the ball over, run your offense a little bit, spell the other guys. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Now, the guy that I mentioned earlier, Jordan Walsh, is a guy that I was very, very impressed with. Now, obviously, watching him at Arkansas, he was a guy that did not have any offensive game to him really whatsoever. He was more of a slasher, a guy that could score in transition, and he was a defensive anchor. I mean, that was his job and his role at Arkansas. So I never got to really see him show off his offensive talent, and I was very concerned about his shot. I thought his form was okay. But one thing that people don't really kind of factor in sometimes is that there's a fly flying around me here, guys. Get away from me, my gosh. So one thing that a lot of people don't really factor in is that the NBA three-point line is farther back than the college three-point line. So it is one of those things where really, if a guy's not a great shooter in college, it's going to be really hard for them to develop that shot in the NBA, because if you are having a hard time making basically what amounts to a mid-range shot in the NBA, or a long mid-range shot in the NBA, then you're going to have a hard time shooting threes consistently too. But Jordan Walsh, while his shot is a little bit inconsistent, I mean, I see the tools for him to be a great 3-and-D guy for the Celtics, not just this year, but in years to come. I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight. He's a little bit skinny, and so at his position, he's going to play the 3 and the 4 most of the time. He's going to get bullied by bigger 3s and 4s. I mean, I can just imagine him going up against Michael Porter Jr. or somebody like that who's 6'10", 240 pounds, or Giannis, who's just an absolute freak, and just getting absolutely annihilated just because he can't physically stand up to them. Now, putting him up against smaller guards, like a two-way, like a 2-guard or a 1, having him switch onto those guys, I can see that being an unbelievably successful right now, right away, and into the future. And I think that if he continues to develop his shot, which has been so much better, again, than I thought it would be just watching him in Arkansas, I think that he could be a guy that comes off the bench, shoots 3s, plays great defense, and is switchable, and basically becomes your next Grant Williams. Now, obviously, Grant is more of a big, and Jordan Walsh is clearly more of a 3, whereas Grant Williams is clearly more of a 4/5 defensively. But I still think that role could be Jordan Walsh's to lose at this point. I would be floored if he did not make the final roster. I really would. And I think that if he doesn't make the final roster and they try to send him to the G League, I wouldn't be surprised if he signs elsewhere. I really wouldn't. Because I think he's talented enough to help out a team right now. So I think the Celtics would be crazy not to keep him. They drafted him for a reason. I think that he's a guy that's going to be that, 4th wing off the bench. You got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Sam Hauser, and I think Jordan Walsh is going to be right behind Sam Hauser this year. If not even ahead of Sam Hauser, which is crazy considering Sam Hauser shot like 49% from 3 last year, and I think he's only going to get better with another offseason of being healthy and of knowing what his role could be and getting better at some things that he wasn't great at last year, like attacking the rim or defensively, right? So we'll see what happens, but I like Jordan Walsh a lot, and I think that he will be very good for the Celtics, not just this year, but hopefully into the future. What do you guys think about the Celtics Summer League season so far? That's a lot of S's and C's right in a row. What do you think about the Celtics Summer League season so far? That's a lot of, yeah. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below, and again, I'll be happy to get into a discussion with any of you guys about what the Celtics are going to do this year and going forward. All right, last thing I want to talk about today is going to be the Kristaps Porzingis contract extension. So I might have mentioned it last week in my last podcast. I don't remember if I made mention of it, but there have been rumors since free agency opened after Kristaps Porzingis was traded to the Celtics, that pretty much right away there was a 2-year, $60 million extension on the table, and that Kristaps had signed it. I had never seen that he had actually officially signed it. I just assumed that would kind of be a thing. So yeah, I did kind of want to talk about that extension because I think everybody was kind of operating under the assumption that was going to be the case, and now that we had signed Kristaps Porzingis to that extension, Grant Williams, would be out the door because we wouldn't be able to afford to keep him, and that's exactly what happened. And I think the Celtics made out great in that trade, considering you're going to lose the guy anyway. Might as well get something for him. You got 2 second-round picks that we can use to trade for people or to trade up in the drafts for next year or the year after, whatever the case may be. So I thought it was great. And I love that we have Kristaps Porzingis for 2 more years now. Now, the only question that I have is how is this going to affect the Jaylen Brown extension, which still has not happened yet. Now, I've seen, again, conflicting reports. I seem to get that a lot, unfortunately, in which talks have stalled, and then it's going to happen any day now. So I've seen both. I have no idea which one is true, to be honest with you. I'm just going to be perfectly upfront and honest. I don't know which one of those is true. I hope that it's going to happen. I don't know if I hope it's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen soon because I don't think the Celtics are going to let Jaylen Brown walk. I think that what you really want to do is keep your 2 young wings together for their entire careers, or at least their entire prime, and really just bank on the fact that one day they're going to get it figured out and they're going to win a championship together. When you got 2 top 15 or top 10 players in the NBA that are playing together, you just hope that you can keep them together long enough that they figure it out and win a championship. So I can understand them wanting to keep him, even though I'm not necessarily sure that Jaylen Brown is the answer long-term, quite frankly, at this point. I don't see him becoming a guy that you can rely on when Jason Tatum is out to carry a team. I just don't see it, so we'll see. But anyways, Damian Lillard is still on the market, and I haven't really commented on it, so I want to comment on it a little bit here. I'd love for the Celtics to trade for Damian Lillard, guys. I would. And I know this doesn't really have to do with the Kristaps extension, but it does because, this is going to sound horrible, guys, and I know that you guys are going to probably roast me and fricassee me in the comments section, but I would rather have Damian Lillard than Jaylen Brown. That is not a popular opinion. I am well aware. Damian Lillard is in his 30s. He's got an enormous contract. He does not play a lot of defense. I get it, but I'll tell you what I do know. Damian Lillard is a big game player, and everybody knows it. Everybody has seen those highlights of Damian Lillard hitting that shot against Houston in the playoffs to send him to the second round. Everybody's seen that highlight of Damian Lillard shooting that 5,000-foot three over Paul George to eliminate the Thunder a few years ago. Everybody has seen the clips of Damian Lillard dropping 50 points in the bubble in the playoffs when they were the 8th seed and they had no business winning any games against the Lakers that year. They were not a good team, and Damian Lillard willed that team to one win a la Allen Iverson against the Lakers in 2000 or 2001, whatever year that was. I mean, he is a big game player, and right now the Celtics just need guys that I know when push comes to shove in crunch time, if I give the ball to Damian Lillard, I feel confident that we're going to win that game. He's not going to turn the ball over. He's not going to throw up a ridiculous shot that makes me want to throw my head into a brick wall. Like, these are the things that we need. And Jaylen Brown, in Game 7 of last year, completely crumbled under the pressure. Completely crumbled. And, yeah, he was great in the finals, but I feel like he was great in the finals because he was not turning the ball over. And turning the ball over a lot is mental. Like, yes, a lot of it's physical too, like, obviously. But a lot of it's up here. If you turn the ball over once, it can get in your head. And I just feel like he got in his head. And you can't let another team get in your head when you're in that spot. When you're at home, Game 7, you just came down from 3-0 and tied the series. You're about to go to an NBA Finals after everybody last year said, we learned from last year. We learned from the finals run. This is the year. We're going to do it. We're not stopping until we win a finals. Well, guess what? You got stopped hard by the Heat. Hard. Damian Lillard's not going to be. So I'd rather have Damian Lillard. Now, what does that have to do with Kristaps Porzingis? With this Kristaps Porzingis contract, does that mean now that you feel the need to trade Jaylen Brown? And if you do, can you get Damian Lillard? Maybe. I've heard rumblings of Paul George. I've heard rumblings of Brandon Ingram, and I would not like to have either of those two. Because I think you're going to have the same problem. Neither of those guys are guys that are going to run your offense. Neither of those guys are particularly great at not turning the ball over. And neither of those guys are really big game players. Paul George, a little more so. Brandon Ingram hasn't proven anything to me big game-wise. And even Paul George, I mean, yeah, he was great in Indiana, but that was 10 years ago. In case anybody's forgotten, that's a long time. What has he done in the playoffs? What has he led the Clippers to when he's been healthy? Nothing. I don't know. So, we'll see what happens, but either way, the Kristaps Porzingis contract extension, I like it. He's making less money for the next, not this year, but 2 years after that than he would be making this year. So I think that's always a positive because you basically just gave yourself an extra $6 million to work with, which is really nice. And I think that he is a great fit for what the Celtics need and what they're looking for. I think a dominant big guy that can score 20 points a game and stretch the floor and shoot threes while also playing fantastic interior defense, along with the fantastic interior defense of Al Horford and Rob Williams, I think it's going to be great. I'm really, really excited to see Kristaps Porzingis in a Celtics uniform. Now, health is always a concern, with Kristaps Porzingis, but I'm hoping that if he has a little bit of a lesser role, he won't feel the need to have to go as crazy as he has been. And he was relatively healthy last year, so hopefully he can build on that. And the worst part of his injury history is behind him. But obviously, as you get older, things tend to happen, but he's only 27. So hopefully things will turn around. Not turn around for him. I mean, he's always been good. But hopefully injury-wise, he'll be able to stay healthy and prove to Celtics Nation, to me, and to the world that he can be a key cog on a championship team, which he hasn't really had the chance to do yet. He's been on 3 unbelievably mediocre teams. The Knicks, who are just mediocre or bad with him. The Dallas Mavericks, who were mediocre or bad with him. And the Wizards, who I don't even think they were mediocre with him, quite frankly. I think they were just bad. So I'd like to, I'm going to love to see him have a chance to play on a really good team that's going to compete for a championship. And I'm really glad he's doing it for my team. That always makes me happy.
Hey guys, me again. I just want to say thank you so much for checking out the Lopes Goes Last podcast. It means the world to me that you decided to stick all the way to the end. That's super cool. So thank you again. And if you really, really like what you see, I'd love for you to subscribe, like the video, and share it with all your family and friends because, this is my passion project. This is what I love to do, and I really want the sucker to grow. And the only way that can happen is through you guys, is if you guys can help me out. So again, if you like what you saw, please subscribe, like the video, share it with all your friends and family. That's the only way this is going to grow. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.